All right, hi friends. So we are going to start working in VectorWorks now that we're all gathered together, and you will be creating construction drawings similar to these example construction drawings, but based on Matilda resource files, okay? So I'm going to do an example from my recently dealt with Greece project, okay? I'm going to look in here. Let's see what these elevations. So these are example elevations from the designer. So there's wall A, right? There's this one, which has like a cutout inside of it. There's this one, which has a door and a window. So you're going to choose a wall. You're going to choose from the Matilda drawing set, and I'm choosing one of these, I think. So I'm going to just download the PDF that I need for the wall I have chosen. So I'm going to choose, I'll choose this one here, this alcove, twin bed, fold up, whatever thing is happening, okay? This wall, wall C, that'll be the wall that I'm going to choose to draft a construction drawing for now, okay? So I start by downloading that file from Canvas. Then I'm going to open VectorWorks. I'm going to create a blank document in VectorWorks, and this document has nothing going on in it. So what I actually want is to use the template file, which you'll find, which we should have set up by now, hopefully. So I'm actually going to go to New, and I'm going to use my template file. I'm using this one. You'll use the one that it says CSUN Theater. And now I have a set of random folders, not random, of pre-set up design layers and folders and sheet layers, all of that stuff, okay? So I'm going to come into my design layers, which is the stacks of paper section, and I'm going to import the PDF of the elevation drawing. So I'm going to go over to import, say import PDF. I'm going to find where I just downloaded my Greece elevations. I'm going to go ahead and import all 3 pages because I don't remember which page I want to be on. And I'm going to say import. All right, so now I brought in these 3 pages, okay? Let's look at them. So I have my 3 pieces of paper. Great, lovely. From the show. Cool. So I have, and I was wanting to look at wall C, which is up here. So I have wall C. The first thing I want to do is check to see if I'm in the correct scale. And I'm going to do that by picking up one of these measuring tools, this constrained linear dimension tool. And I'm just zooming in and measuring the thing. So this says 20 feet, and the measurement in the dimensions says 10 feet. The reason being that I am in half-inch scale in this drawing, but if I look over up in the corner of my VectorWorks, the layer that I'm on right now is in 1/4-inch scale. So because I'm just drafting stuff, I'm going to just switch my scale, my paper scale, from 1/4-inch to 1/2-inch for this project, and I'm going to have it do that to all the layers, okay? What that has done may or may not have helped me, right? Because it may have made all of these pages bigger. Let's check. Let's see if they're still weird. Yeah. So it made all of the paper bigger too. In this case, what I'm going to do is just pick up my pointer tool, select the whole page, right? Delete those pages, import them again. So I'll just re-import them now that I'm in 1/2-inch scale. Open that PDF. I want all the pages. I'm going to import them. They're going to come back in again. And now when I measure something on the paper, right, it will be the same size, right? Basically 8 feet, the same size as it is in real life, okay? So that's step 1, is to make sure your scales are matching. The other way that you can change or adjust the scale is using over here in modify, using scale objects will also allow you to adjust the scale of whatever thing you're importing. So if I wanted to make something that came in at some weird scale and I just wanted to scale that one page to be the correct size, I would use the Scale Objects tab. I often use Symmetric by Distance to do this kind of thing. And then you click on this little measuring tool and you do a measurement, right? Boop, boop. And then you tell it how big it's actually supposed to be, right? So this is already correct. But if it were twice as big and I was trying to make it smaller, I would put the distance that was listed in the annotation there as that distance. Okay, so that's step one. There we are. Now we want to trace. We're not going to exactly trace because we really want to construct a 2D drafting of the shape of the wall that we are trying to use. Okay, and I'm going to do this on a separate layer. So my theater floor plan is the layer that my drafting is sitting on. Because I'm not making this as a whole 3D model, I will probably just change some of these drawing labels, these layer labels, to be what I want this stuff to be, okay? So I'm going to change this into PDF import, right? And then I'm going to make the one above it into scenery, just so that I'm working on the correct layers, right? So I do that by kind of clicking where this pencil is, and then I can type in these fields. So I'm going to switch to my scenery layer, and this is a check mark here, right? When I did that, everything disappeared, and that's because layer options right now was set to gray snap others. And I want it to be show snap others so that I can see the pictures that are on the layer I'm not currently working on. I want to be able to see this PDF, but I don't want to mess it up, okay? So here I am on my scenery layer. Now I want to create the shape that matches this sort of trapezoidal, this slanty edged wall. That's going to be my first step in creating this construction drawing. So I will start in this case with the rectangle tool, okay? And I can either quickly trace what I'm doing, right? So if I quickly trace, it's close to the size, but not quite. And if you look over here, you can actually change and adjust the width and the height precisely using this object info panel. So if I change this to actually be 10 feet wide, which is what all of this width adds up to, and 9 feet tall, now I have exactly the size that I need. And then the next thing I'm going to want to do is add this upper, like this triangle on top, okay? To do that, I have a couple of choices. Let's do the way that is how I would actually do it if I'm drafting it. And that is I'm going to make a little rectangle, snap it to the end. I know that this distance is a foot because this measurement is 10 inches and that is not, or is 10 feet and that is 9 feet. So I'm going to just hit tab as I start drawing a rectangle, and that's going to let me change how big it is in this little fly out on the side, right? So I'm going to make that 1 foot, and then I'm going to hit tab again, and I'm going to make that 1 foot, and I've now made a little 1 foot square in the corner there, okay? The next thing I'm going to do, actually, before I do any of those things, I'm noticing I'm drawing in blue, right? That means I'm using my dimensions as my class, and I don't want that. So I'm going to quickly switch over to the none class, and then I'm going to pick up my rectangle and make sure that I'm in the none class as I continue drawing, right? These are still in that dimensions class, so I can change them to the none class over here. None. Great. Okay, so now to edit this, I want to use the reshape tool. And the reshape tool is this guy right here, but you can also get to it by double clicking on a selected object. So if I want to reshape this rectangle, I can double click on this object, double click. My handles have changed, right? So you see when I click the first time, my handles, I get this draggy handle and I get this pick it up. The plus sign is pick it up handle. When I double click, I get this handle with a box and the 4 arrows in all directions. That one is going to allow me to reshape. So because this is snapped into this corner, I can just reshape the edge of it. And now I have the correct height, right? So far, so good. Okay. I'm going to take this over here to the side because I also need to now figure out this alcove for the bed, which will be cut out of this surface, right? So if this is the front of the thing, I need to have an opening because has an X. That means there's nothing there, right? So to do that, I'm going to take this two-dimensional object and I'm going to figure out how big this opening is, make a rectangle of that size, and then cut it out of this piece, okay? So I'm going to take this rectangle tool and I'm going to draw a rectangle. It's going to be 3'6" by 6'8". I'm going to just do it over here. So when I hit tab, 3'6" is the width, 6 inches, and then I hit tab again, 6'8" is the height, and hit tab. Once I've hit tab that second time, I get this red dashed line. So I can click on that. Now I have this rectangle, okay? I hit my X key. That brings me back to my cursor. I'm going to pick up this by the plus sign right in the corner. If it looks like this, I'm resizing it. I don't want that. Command Z, undo. I want it to pick it up with the plus sign because then I can snap it into this corner. All right, so now I've snapped this opening into the corner. And now I know it's 2 foot 10 inches. That's what's listed in the dimensions here. 2 foot 10 inches from this edge. So I can say Command M, which is move, right? It'll move whatever is selected. And I'm going to move it over in the X direction, right? So the X axis is horizontal, the Y axis is vertical. Move it over in the X direction, 2 foot 10 inches. 2 foot 10 inches. Enter. Okay. All right. So there are those two pieces together, okay? Now, I'm going to cut this door out of the wall. It's not really a door, this opening out of the wall. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to go up into Modify, and I'm going to use this tool here, Clip Surface, okay? And then delete. So now, this is the shape that I'm going for, that I'm trying to construct, okay? So this will be the shape of the wall that I want to build. My next step, right, is I need to make a construction drawing for my carpenters. So I want to take this shape, flip it over upside down, and then put in all of the framing pieces on the back of it. So to do that, I'm going to start by selecting the shape. Then I'm going to pick up my mirror tool. That's over here. I love the mirror tool. It's so good. And we're going to click here, go straight down, right? And now that will mirror across to the other side. So now I have a front and a back. So I'm going to just put a little text label underneath so that I remember front, back, right, of this unit. When I'm actually doing it, I don't typically do that. I just flip things around in different which ways. But for the purposes of this adventure, we're going to make this the back. Okay. Now we can zoom in. All right, so now I'm going to do all those things that we did in class, like, I don't know, 6 weeks ago, where we add all of the framing in for the flat. Do we remember this? It was a thing we did. We did it together in class. I'm going to break this into a couple of different pieces. I'm going to do a piece that sits kind of across the top here, and then I'm going to do 2 little side panel pieces, okay? So I'm going to start by putting in, with little rectangles, some of my framing pieces that I need, okay? So I'm going to start with a piece that goes all the way across that middle section. I'm going to start by snapping into that corner, and then I'll move it to the place that I want it to be in the project. So it's going to be 10 feet long. I know that. That's the X length of it. And the thickness of it is the 1x3 on edge. So it's going to be 3/4 of an inch thick. Hit tab, click, okay? Now I have this piece. I can pick it up by its midpoint. So I'm going to pick it up with my X key, hit my X key, otherwise I'm going to be drawing more rectangles forever. Pick it up by its midpoint, right? And I want to bring it straight down until I hit the door. So right now, even just hovering over, it's going to keep it vertical. If I am a little loosey-goosey with my mouse and I hold my shift key, it will snap it back to keeping it vertical, which is a thing that's often helpful to do, okay? So that piece is going to sit right there on top of the door. That is my first framing piece. If I want to do this in 3D, I extrude it now. Those of you who have taken VectorWorks class would go ahead and extrude that into 3D and make it 2.5 inches tall. But we're going to just, for now, stick with the flat version, okay? So there's that. Now I want to make another little rectangle on the bottom side. So that's going to be like the rail of this top trapezoidal flat. Make a piece here. As I slide my cursor over, when I get to the other side, see how it kind of snaps into that object? That is going to automatically determine the width. So I can hit tab, it's going to snap to that. I can just hit tab over from there and say minus 3/4 of an inch. That's going to be the thickness of that framing piece that sits underneath it. Okay. I'll do the same thing over here and on all of the bottom edges, right? So this, hit tab because I want to keep that, minus 3/4, and tab again and then click. Okay. So those two are great. I can actually copy and paste. So if I hit my X key to get back to my cursor, I can select those two pieces. I can Command C, copy, Command V, paste, and then I can pick up from this bottom corner and I can snap that in, and that will also replicate that to the bottom edge. Okay. Now I'm going to bring in some side framing pieces, right? I'm going to let that kind of snap to the minus 6 foot 6.5, and then I'm going to make the X 3/4 of an inch, right? Click. And this piece, I need one here, I need one here, I need one here. There's 4 of them. So Command C, Command V, pick it up. I can either pick this up or I can use my X key to pick it up. I want to be careful now as I work to pick things up by specific corners, right? So that I'm getting the insertion point correct. If I pick it up from like some random place, I'm not able to snap it into the corner the way I want to. But if I pick it up using the plus sign here in the corner, it'll snap right in where I want it to go. Command C, Command V, right? Right, we'll do this. The other thing I can do on a side panel like this is I can just mirror it across to the other side. If I have a center point, I can use my mirror tool and just make another copy over there. Okay. Similar idea up here. We have a little bit of a tricky bit here in the corner, so we'll look at that. If I snap here, I snap there, and then I hit tab 3/4 of an inch. Right, and then I actually want it to go all the way up to the top of the corner. Now I have this little edge, right, that's sticking up above the edge of my actual object, okay? I can come in. I can use my reshape tool, right? That's an option. I can double click and go like this, and it'll just like snap down object to object, and it'll correct that size. That's one way. The other way would be to make a big rectangle here and clip surface at that angle. So you can do that too, if that is better for you. But I'm going to just zoom in, use my reshape tool, and bring it straight down and snap it to the object so that it makes that nice angled edge, right? I have made a mistake, right? Because I actually don't want this piece to go all the way up to that edge because I need to have a framing piece along that edge, right? So I'm going to just drag this down a little bit, and we'll drag it back up once we have that top framing piece in place. Yeah, we want to save our files. We always want to save our files. This is construction drawings. Always want to save our files. That's important. Okay, so let's make a little rectangle that does this top edge. In this case, most of our rectangles that we have been drawing, we have clicked one time, clicked another time, and it's made a rectangle that's like square to the page. In this case, we want a slanty rectangle because this piece of wood is slanty on our project. So we're going to use the 3-point rotated mode for the rectangle tool. And then we can come in and we make a rectangle that's going this way. Okay, see the nice cute little slantiness to it? We can, once we have created it, we can click here to put our anchor point up at the top, and then we can change its height again to that 3/4 of an inch that we always want, right? And once we've done that, then we can come in and use our reshape tool, right? And we can make it go object horizontal, right? We can make this staying in line. This is a little tricky. No, can't. This is not working great. We're going to do it the other way. We're going to extend the whole thing longer first. All right, so I'm going to extend the whole thing so that the bottom point hits this edge, and then I'll use my reshape tool to bring this top point back to the corner. That's a much easier way to achieve what our goal would be, okay? And we can come over here, and you'll see our top point is already snapped to that corner. So we'll, in this case, we will shrink our edge down. Oof, if I hold shift, it should keep it straight. I don't want that. I want this one. I want the other one. I want the other one. I don't want to move it. I want to reshape it. Sure. Right? And then I did not know. It didn't work. Okay, we're gonna do this a different way. Zip, zip, zip. Undo, 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 undo. Okay. So then the other option, right, which is sometimes easier, and I don't actually want that. I don't want that reshape option. I want the other one. I want this one. So my other option, if it's a little bit longer, and this has gotten a little weird because, oh no, I was messing with the wrong thing. You guys, I'm sorry. All right, this has gotten a little weird. Yeah, okay. So the other option to trim off that edge is to make a little rectangle like this. And then I select the two items and I say modify clip surface. That will create this little rectangle, and then I can delete it. Once I've done that, I can come in here and I can use my reshape tool to bring this edge straight up to meet it. Okay. And then I'll do the same thing that I did here on this side. And then the last thing I'm going to do, and I'll show you this here, and you can then implement it in your drawing. So the last thing I'm going to do, because I'm making a series of vertical framing pieces, and I want one every 2 feet, I'm going to use the duplicate array tool. So if I come in here to edit, one of my options is duplicate array. And it's going to have all these different options, right, about how we set it up. The linear array is the one that we want. The first duplicate's position is determined by Cartesian offset, which means it's offsetting relative to space by whatever distance, okay? So in our case, we want to move it over 2 feet, right? Which will get us close enough. It won't be perfect, but it'll get us close enough. So we say Cartesian offset, we say move it over 2 feet. We say 4 duplicates, that's going to be more than we need, right? If you're making your toggles that are going vertical, instead of this Y offset, you would use an X offset to create those duplicates, okay? Because you'd be moving vertically in space. Then you say, okay, I did that wrong. Look at that. Undo. Let's do that again. I meant to use the X one and I was using the Y one. Let's get it right, Lily. Edit, duplicate array. So instead of the Y changing, I want the X to change 2 feet. And I want the Y to change 0 inches. So now it should go across the X-axis. Oh, so much better. Okay. So once I've done that, I can then come in and I can reshape each of these individual ones down to this edge, right? So that they are all correctly built at the correct heights, right? I can come in here and put in my other framing pieces here using my rectangle tool. And we will figure out how we assign the sheets of plywood. That'll be our last step. But as it is right now, 12:44, and our class starts at 1, I'm going to go ahead and export this video so that you have something to work from. And we can do next steps together in class. Okay, great. Talk to you soon. Bye.